How's it going, Chasers? I hope you're having a kick-ass week. Today's podcast is brought to you by Adventures in Home Brewing, a kick-ass brick-and-mortar but also online store that'll supply you with all of your needs for beer making, wine making, cider making, mead making even, probably if you want to. Haven't checked that. I'm guessing they do it. But yes, also distilling supplies as well. And the best part is, if you're in most parts of America, they have pretty reasonable free shipping rates depending on how much you spend in the store. So if you want to check them out and get some great products at good pricing with reliable service, you can go to homebrewing.org/CTC. That'll take you to their specials page. You can check out what's on special and browse from there. This podcast is also brought to you by Gladfield Malt. Kick-ass malt, grown and malted right here in New Zealand. I love this stuff and I use it all the time. If you don't know who they are and you don't know what I'm talking about, you can go to gladfieldmalt.co.nz to check them out. And lastly, the show is brought to you by chasethecraft.com. A couple of things to let you know about on this topic. Number one, the Chase the Craft coins and pins are back in store and available again online, and now they're shipping out of America, not New Zealand. So if shipping to your location was a bit of a problem beforehand, it might be a little bit different and better for you now. And second, we now have rocks glasses as well, guys. Those of you looking on YouTube version of this podcast will be able to see me holding them up right now. For those of you on Spotify or anything like that, go to chasethecraft.com and check them out. But we have two designs. One is a slightly smaller, fits in the hand a little easier, and the second is the more old school, big, thick base, straight sides, and a little bit chunkier. If that sounds like something you're into, you can check them out at chasethecraft.com. Today's guests are from Sydney, Australia, and they realized that a silly amount of really good bread was going completely to waste because it wasn't selling. They also realized that you can mash and ferment bread. So Hang Ten Distillery was born. Their very first gin, a baker's dozen, which is an awesome name for a gin like this, is really not a traditional gin at all. And honestly, if you went into tasting it expecting a traditional gin, you'd probably be quite disappointed. Instead, it is a really, really interesting beverage that at its core does a really awesome job of honoring that original bread that they used to create the gin, and is kind of the foundation of the concept of the distillery itself. So let's get stuck into this podcast with Marine and Deon from Hang Ten Distillery. Deon and Marine, thanks for doing this, guys. It's awesome to be able to talk to you finally. It took a little while to get this set up, and we had a bottle go missing somehow. But thanks for getting this over to me. I'm really excited to try it. So thanks for being on the podcast, guys. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks for the invite.
Thank you for having us.
Absolute pleasure. So I am going to pour myself a drink. Should I make a cocktail first out of this, or should I just have it straight up?
No, you should definitely try it straight up first.
Straight up, yeah.
Try it straight up.
To get all the flavors.
Cool. I'll have a little like this. So I got to ask, guys, what is the deal with making gin out of old bread? Why?
Yeah. Well, we basically wanted to start a company that does something for the environment, something that's actually meaningful. And we wanted to use surplus food to make a product. Originally, the idea we actually had was there was a documentary called War on Waste. And in that, they were throwing away tons and tons of bananas or fruits because the supermarkets didn't like the shape. Then later on, I saw another, like a documentary on like a gin or an alcohol they were making in Uganda from bananas. And I'm just like, oh, well, they're throwing away a lot of bananas and these guys are making alcohol of bananas. It's like, well, you know, there's a solution to that problem. So that's how we got started.
Yeah, totally. So this is kind of an ignorant question on my point of view, but what is the benefit of actually using the bread as opposed to throwing it out?
Yeah, so when it turns into food waste, when they send it to the dump, it actually starts breaking down and gives off a lot of methane. And it's actually adds to carbon emissions. And methane is 21 times worse than like carbon dioxide. So the less food that we waste, the less like carbon emissions get emitted from that rotten food. I mean, sure, there's a little bit of carbon emissions using a still. However, that's still far better than making it just off like general neutral. So we're reducing a local business's food waste here, and we're actually generating something commercial out of that.
And bread is also like one of the most wasted products that you can have, especially with the local businesses here. Unfortunately, they have to make a bit more than they need, and what they sell is not all of it. So unfortunately, they have a huge waste. And in Australia, the food waste problem is pretty big. There's way more food than we all need in Australia. So it's kind of trying to kind of offload that from the business and try to do a little bit of what we can to reduce carbon emissions and still have something nice to drink.
Yeah, totally. I mean, people are going to drink gin anyway, right? So why not drink this gin?
That's right.
But yeah, it is. I mean, it's tricky with something like bread, isn't it? Because it's a product that no one's going to buy stale bread.
That's right.
Like I mean, especially when it's artisan, it's not something that's been, sitting in a bag and it can sit on the shelf for a week. You make it that day, you sell it that day, maybe that afternoon, maybe the next day. That's it. It's done. And as a business, I can understand it because it makes more sense to make slightly more than you can sell for the days when you do sell, when you do sell out, as opposed to reducing the amount you make. So I get it. But yeah, it is kind of crazy when you see the amount of food that just ends up in the tip. It's bonkers. So it's cool. I mean, this is really interesting. I want to say that I can not so much smell, but taste the influence of bread. But I'm very interested to see what else you put in there and whether or not I'm just making that up, because I see that on your website and on the bottle too, I think you have, what is it, Jamaican pepper?
Yes.
Is that right?
That's right.
Yes.
What the Sam Hill is Jamaican pepper? Because maybe that's what I'm tasting.
Also known as allspice.
Oh, okay. I think we're onto something, because it is. I was going to say that the reason I was doubting myself is it reminds me of really, really dark rye bread is the flavor that I'm getting from it. That reminds me of bread. And all the pictures I've seen of what you're making, it's not really dark stuff.
No. It depends on what the baker's got left over.
Yeah, I imagine. I really want to talk to you about that and get onto that as well. But okay, I'm thinking that what I'm tasting is allspice. Do you have cinnamon in there at all?
No cinnamon.
We don't, but a lot of people told us they thought there was cinnamon. So I think it's like the blend of spices kind of give that cinnamon gingery taste, but it actually isn't in there. But that's pretty cool to see that it kind of tastes like that.
Yeah, totally. The first thing when it turned up at like 9 o'clock in the morning. So of course the first thing I did was pop the top and have a little swig straight out of the bottle. But then I put it on the shelf and waited until my wife got home and we tried it together, and we both said cinnamon straight off the bat, and then sort of thought it's kind of like cinnamon, but not really. Yeah, I don't know. It's very, very interesting. So I'm interested to hear what your process is from turning the bread into gin from a geekery point of view. Yeah. But I'm also interested to hear what that process is to see whether or not there is the possibility that some of the characteristic of the bread's coming through, and whether you think that that's happening. So I don't know how much you can or can't tell us about that. So feel free to go into what you can.
We're all about reducing food waste, so it doesn't actually make sense for us to hide our process from anyone else. So if someone else can do the same process, I think that's better for the environment anyway. So we're happy to share. Yeah, definitely the taste of bread. Bread was actually one of the ingredients that we used in the gin basket. So We did put a few
Oh,
slices.
really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting. So I'm not crazy thinking that I'm getting some sort of... Because I have to say, guys, like, if I bought this bottle expecting a traditional gin,
Yeah.
I would be grossly disappointed. Well, not disappointed, but surprised. So it's definitely not a traditional gin.
No,
Right?
it's not traditional at all.
This is really far left field.
Yeah.
I mean, shit, you put bread in the gin basket.
Yeah.
I mean... Okay, cool. So how else are you using the bread? Like, what's the deal here?
All right, so we actually have too much bread. We can't process enough of it because we don't have our own warehouse where we live. So we can't actually process enough of the bread yet. Or we're trying to scale up, but there's a lot of red tape and loopholes to jump through. So, but yeah, we pick up the bread from the local bakeries down the road. We basically either break it up or slice it up at the brewery. We actually run it in the mash with grain. So we've got barley in there and the sourdough bread. We run it the same as you would as another mash for distilling. And then it's all fermented out. And then we run it through stripping still, and then spirit still, and then the third time through gin run. So.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's a pretty standard or traditional sort of method in terms of fermenting your own alcohol and then making gin out of it. It's just that you're using bread with it is the big difference.
We're using it as a
what
source of starch.
Yeah. And what percentage of the fermentables are you using for bread, or are you using the bread for, or does that change dramatically depending on what you've got?
Well, we started off with it's a quarter of the grain bill, and we're just slowly increasing it. It also depends on how much bread we've actually got available to us at the time of brewing, because we don't have a fridge to store it to wait until the brewery's ready to run it. So it's kind of a bit of a balancing act between when it's ready to go and when it's not. We've had we picked up a lot of bread and we had it ready to go, but there was a delay in the brewing process, so all the bread went moldy.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I think refrigeration might.
Yeah, to clarify, like, we don't use moldy bread to make this gin.
No.
Usually we've had a few people ask, but no, usually we have
it's fresh.
like 1 to 2 days window of like having still fresh bread to make it. Yeah. But unfortunately it can't be sold to the public. But yeah, if we get any more than that, then it's hard to process that bread in a fresh state. So yeah, we don't use moldy bread. Just a disclaimer.
The particular baker we work with only sells fresh bread on the day, and he throws away his entire stock each day. So there's actually a lot of bread from them.
So I kind of get the feeling that you almost need to be flexible out of necessity, otherwise it would kind of ruin the point, right? Like the whole point is to use what isn't being used elsewhere, and if people knew exactly what wasn't being used elsewhere on a consistent basis, it wouldn't be going to waste, right? Is that kind of a fair statement?
Yeah. At the moment, we don't have the capacity to process the amount of bread that we can get. We are trying to scale up, but it's a bit hard at the moment. Warehouse space and
So, yeah, totally. So you're not brewing on site, like you're contract brewing with someone else? Is that kind of the vibe I'm getting?
At the moment we are, yeah.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, cool.
We don't have the space or the equipment to do it ourselves yet.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like you said, you're kind of at the mercy of their brewing schedule to fit.
Yeah. Unfortunately, that's kind of the way we can go at the moment, but it's also like a good way for us to get started where we can get to the point where we can have our own place and warehouse. So it is a bit, like you said earlier, we have to be like super flexible with it, but it's kind of also a good thing because, it just makes it a bit more fun.
Yeah.
Oh, I get it, man. And the equipment commitment up front, if you just wanted to do it all yourself, is just intense. The the outlay, I get it, and I think it's pretty cool that you guys are like actively fermenting something. Do you know what I mean? You're not just buying in
Yeah.
NGS and then sticking bread in the gin basket or something. It's actually a meaningful thing. It's not just a token gesture, for marketing purposes. That's cool. And you're doing the distilling yourself. So do you want to talk us through the equipment that you're running and how you're doing it on that side of things?
Yeah, some of the equipment we can't talk about, but we're basically, it's the same as Gypsy Distilling. We're using someone else's equipment to produce the gin. So you do a stripping run. So we're getting about 1,000 litres of wort from the brewery that's fermented at the distillery. And then everything's run through the distillery, stripping through a column still. And then again, it's just changed to plates for the spirit run. And then you change the configuration again to do a gin basket for the final run. And that's the main.
Yeah, groovy.
Yeah.
This is really interesting. It's kind of I'm sitting here and having a sip and trying to concentrate on the conversation, but also trying to pull this apart. And there's a lot. There's a lot going on here.
Okay.
It's always interesting to me when I get a spirit that's how do you put it? There's no like starting point for me. It's not like I can go, oh, this is just like X, Y, and Z. But do you know what I mean? It's really hard to place it.
Yeah. Well, this is going to be a limited one.
Yeah.
We're going to run. We are making a classic, which will be, I guess, suit most people's flavour profile better. This is a very unique one that we need to do because of the bread in the first place. So.
Yeah.
I think it's cool, man. If you're gonna, I mean, why not, right? Why not go out there and do something different? Because it is interesting to me that you say that you put bread in the bread basket, but in the grain basket. But it honestly does remind me of bread. Like it's got this weird earthy, and I say weird when I'm thinking gin, which is normally botanicals and then super clean. And it's but the flavor profile comes over almost like a whiskey. There's there's a lot of earthiness sitting like down much lower in the flavor stack than you'd normally get flavor in a gin. There's flavor sitting in that place where you would expect just neutral. But,
it's probably
so it's kind of bizarre.
It's probably a little bit leaning towards a Geneva, which is whiskey,
right?
So right. Say that the flavor profile that you're just touching on, there's a bit of a savory profile that would be like similar to a whiskey. That's the grain that you can taste.
Yeah.
And I think the bread and the grain have kind of joined together in that flavor profile that you can taste.
Yeah.
And then the apple is the main part.
That too, yeah.
So that's spices.
The what, sorry?
There's apple.
Oh, really?
Yes, that's the main fruit flavor that's hiding in the middle.
But you nailed it. Like it does give a really earthy flavor.
I'm really, I have had, well, I mean, as you can see, I've been at it a little bit. And I had a couple of gin and tonics the other night, but that was with crappy, generic tonic. You guys suggested drinking it with this, right? Yeah. The Fever Tree Mediterranean.
Yeah.
I don't have ice out here, but I am going to give one of these a nudge. It's so crazy to me how many people drink gin and tonic like me, and they get really, really nice gin and then put like really, really horrible tonic.
Yes.
Well, I also don't mind some plain tonics as long as they don't have too much flavors in it, like too much lemon or stuff. The plain one's actually quite good because it leaves the flavor to the gin, whereas some tonics, on the other hand, are trying to pack in all the flavor in the tonic. So I guess it depends. You just mix and match and find the right one that matches the gin or what your flavor profile.
I think that's it. Yeah, which is why I was very happy to get a specific recommendation from you guys.
Yeah.
I think to me the hold on. I think to me a lot of the tonics I end up drinking, they don't have a really decent bite at the end of it, that bitterness. You know, they're just kind of weak, and they end up tasting real, just empty with gin. So I have lemon, I have orange, and I have lime. Do you guys have a suggestion on citrus with tonic, or just nothing?
Just tonic is really good, but I'd say out of
Just
those,
by itself?
I would go with orange, but maybe taste it without the orange first.
That is so much better than the crap that I was drinking it with the other night. It's so much better. Yeah.
It makes a huge...
well, okay. This is... Yeah, it really does.
Yeah.
So once again, it's this... I don't want to just keep talking about the gin for ages because I've got lots of other interesting things to ask you. But it's just bizarre. Like, if someone served this to me and said it's a gin and tonic, I don't know if I would believe them.
That's true.
No, it's an oddball. It's obscure.
An obscure gin and tonic.
Yeah, totally. So I have to ask, have you considered doing a, I won't say a neutral because I can't imagine that would be fun at all, but basically just a bread-flavored vodka?
No, I haven't considered it. Oh, sorry, we considered it slightly, but there's a lot of effort and a lot of time going into it, and I don't think the sales, you can't really make that much money out of it because of the competition that you're up against. So,
right.
I don't think
so. Because you guys are actually carry on. Sorry.
Oh, it's just we're not sure it's worth the time and effort to do that to actually make it a viable product at this point, but we're not sure yet.
Yeah, right. So basically, because you guys are actually fermenting product by yourself, the economy of scale is all out of whack, and turning it into a gin adds value to the product. Is that what you're saying? So, like, it's easier for you to compete with as a craft gin than it is to be just like a weirdly flavored vodka.
Yeah.
Is that kind of what you're getting at? Yeah. I can feel you on that. Yeah. For sure.
Vodka is a whole other thing, but we're still like thinking about it and considering it. But I think rather than going vodka, I would probably go a different gin, or you're making whiskey as well at the moment. But we're kind of experimenting a few different things. So
well, we wanted to make whiskey. So.
That's cool. And so you are putting bread in the fermentables for the whiskey as well?
Oh, yeah.
That's very, very cool. And does I don't know at all what the excuse me, I've got gin and tonic burps going on over here. I don't know at all what the Australian regulations are on what you are and are not allowed to call whiskey. Is there anything there that is an issue for you?
Bread is basically a grain.
Yeah.
So there's no issues.
Cool.
Yeah, no problem. The only thing is you have to wait 2.5 years till you can call it whiskey. That's the only biggest requirement. And being
right. Yeah, that's a good point actually, because it's literally grain, water, and yeast.
Yep, it's just grain,
salt.
Maybe salt.
Yeah, right.
Well, but
I mean, plenty of whiskey places put salts in their water, right, to treat the.
That's true.
The water, so
it changes.
I guess it's just the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, guys, if you're listening to this, we've got a slightly weird, just enough delay to not quite know when each other stop talking. So we apologize for that, but it is the way it is. So how far through that whiskey process are you? Like, do you have stuff in a barrel yet?
Yes. Yeah, we've got one barrel. And I got another IBC ready to get stripped as we speak. So
that is very cool. Also, I have to imagine a fairly large leap of faith, right?
Yeah, it's quite a lot of money coming into it.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of people are going to be interested in this. So feel free to go into this in detail. Like, this is actually something I think people will be interested in. Yeah, like, how much of a leap of faith is that for you in terms of just going out? Because I mean, you on one end of the scale, you're doing gin, right? Which is you make it, you bottle it, you're good to roll, pretty much. So what's your experience with the whiskey so far?
So far, you've got regulations with storage of alcohol and production of alcohol. So we have to have a distillery that will make it for us or store it there. So we have to actually rent space from a distillery to store the alcohol until it's ready. Because we can't actually purchase that barrel that we've got. We can't pick that up and take it home. It's not something you can do because you've got tax issues and whatnot. So you don't actually pay the tax on that alcohol until that leaves the store in bottles or smaller vessels. You can't actually take the whole barrel. So, it's a bit of a process, but we're very unique in the fact that to set up to have your own distillery, it costs you, $500,000, $1 million or more in just equipment and setup. So by doing gypsy distilling, by using other people's equipment, it costs a little bit more to do the production side, but we don't have the massive overhead capital.
Yeah, right. And you don't have that overhead cap continuing.
Correct.
If you're not producing, right? As opposed to if you just bought a facility and
Yep.
Yeah, you keep paying overheads on everything until
we're not paying rent on a warehouse at the moment, so that gives us the opportunity to work on the quality of the product instead of just trying to push the product to pay rent.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and I guess the same thing's true when the decisions need to be made in terms of how long the stuff sits in a barrel too, right? It's not like, right, it's 2 years and 1 day old. It's in a bottle 2 day. You can kind of make decisions around quality. Yeah.
True.
That's right.
That's very cool. So we were talking, I think, before we started, right? And Marine, you designed the labels for this.
Yes, that's right. I designed pretty much everything, the labels, the artwork on the back, the website, the whole brand identity, basically. My background is I'm a professional designer and I run my own design business, and I've been working in the design industry for the past, I think, 6-7 years now. Worked with a lot of different brands and very different from like tourism to hospitality and cafes. And worked a little bit with alcohol brands, but never actually had the chance to build something from the ground like that, and especially a gin bottle. And that was actually not an easy process because there's so many gins out there and you're kind of your own client, so you can kind of do whatever you want as well. It took a while to get that final bottle, but I think, when we nailed it, we were very happy with how it looked like. So, yeah.
It has a very low-key but classy feel to it.
Thank you.
And I saw, oh my word, these notifications, my word. Microsoft Surface, what are you doing to me? I saw on your website too that you sort of like you directly say that a lot of it's inspired by the surf and cafe culture.
Yes.
And that's exactly the kind of chill vibe that I get. It's very
perfect.
Awesome.
It's not old school, but it's nostalgic for old school, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like the old Malibu days, that kind of, the big double triple stringer, big donkey dork board kind of things. I don't know. It's cool, man. That's a lot of my dad's really into this kind of thing. He makes he shapes and glasses surfboards semi-professionally, like he'll make them and sell them, but mostly for himself. And this is very much his aesthetic. So it's got like an extra special place for me. But it's funny. Almost what I heard you say there is that how do you put it? When it's your field, you can't bullshit yourself, right?
Yes.
You see, like I see other people do stuff that, if you actually know about it, you can't just sort of naively luck your way into it and make it work. So I could imagine that it was probably a much bigger and more involved process for you because you really knew what was at stake and how much you actually have to do to create a brand than someone else who's just like, I'm going to distill some gin. I need a logo.
Yes, that's so true. You totally nailed it. Like it's so ironic when you think about it, but yeah, it's not an easy process, but it's very rewarding when you get to that point.
I guess if you're paying for each revision too, you're just like, no, that's good. But if we're doing the design ourselves, we can change it a bit more freedom.
Yeah.
So be happy with it.
Yeah. It's cool. I mean, and you've got like because it is so clean, you've got so much room to expand out into all the other products. You know, I could easily see this becoming because that's the thing, right? Like in a lot of ways, you kind of need to brand gin and whiskey differently, but then you need a brand, you know, like a consistent theme running through the brand as well. So I can see you being able to do that easily with this. It's almost like you've done this before, Marine.
Almost. Yeah, no, that's totally the goal.
Have you ever designed stuff for yourself before? Have you ever?
Oh, like as in for my own company or?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, for my own business, I do a lot of illustrations and mostly illustrations, and artworks, and I do my own websites and everything. So it's a bit more on the art side. Like I'd love to be able to do, you know, some T-shirts and stuff, but once again, it's like a time and cost thing. But I did a little bit. Yeah, like the distillery is like the perfect playground to create all of this. And yeah, we did some T-shirts for merchandise, and I'm sure we'll do more products in the future. And yeah, it's awesome because like I can really play creatively within the brand to do many things. So
and talking of making your own surfboard, she designed the pattern for the inlay that we did on a board that we made together. So
oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Oh, cool.
We dabble in making our own boards, longboards, and just for fun. So we're not selling.
Yeah, right. Oh, that's awesome. So what do you do, dude? Like, what's your day job profession?
Well, my background was acoustics, so like audio engineering and acoustic consulting. But
cool.
I grew sick of working in an office 9 to 5 for the last 12 years. So I got pretty sick of it, and I was looking for a way out. So this is kind of my way out. So we're building a tiny house part time.
Oh, okay.
Building this business as well part time. So it's quite a lot going on at the moment.
That is brutal. And I feel like this is the cheesiest question ever right now, but I feel like I have to ask it because you guys do have so much going on. How did all of this go down with COVID? Like, how was the timing?
It actually worked out really good.
Yeah.
Because it got rid of, well, we do like social events, but all the social events went quiet. So we actually had time to focus on the building. We didn't have to go to work either for a couple of weeks while we got locked down.
More than a couple of weeks. Yeah. I like during COVID, I lost a bit of work, unfortunately. Like it was a bit of, I think it happened to a lot of people. So it kind of forced us to slow down. And in a way that slowing down helped us grow the distillery and get to where we are now, and also focus on building the tiny house. So actually COVID was kind of a silver lining for us, although, you know.
It gave us time to focus on some areas that we wouldn't have had as much time to do.
Yeah. So it worked out.
Yeah, right. I feel you, man. It's you feel almost guilty saying that, right? Because, you know, like, you hear stories of people doing it really rough. And I mean, I know people personally that got hit real hard because of COVID.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. There is a factor of just, it forces you to realize there's things that you can't do anything about, right? If you're stuck at home, you can't go out and look for work or whatever. So, you know, I think it's kind of a case of do what you can.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. I think if we were rent on a warehouse and we had a lot of outgoing, then we'd probably be more stressed in that situation. But thankfully, we didn't have all that.
Yeah, definitely.
So, yeah, right. So one of the other things that you suggested that I try beforehand was dry ginger ale and orange.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is my favorite so far. I'm digging this.
Yeah.
Yay.
Yeah. If I don't try and swallow it the wrong way. Yeah, that to me, that extra hit of ginger kind of marries it all together. And because probably also it's just a almost like a cognitive dissonance thing too, where I don't think I've ever put gin in ginger ale, so I'm not expecting it to be gin in any way. It can just be its own thing. Yeah, I like this. This is really good. It's Friday night here, well, for you guys too, right? I don't know what day it is for everyone listening. But I think I know what I'm going to be doing with my wife when the kids are in bed now. Ginger ale and gin, man.
It's a good combo, yeah. We've actually developed a few cocktails with the gin in the last few weeks, so I'm going to talk more about those in the next few weeks on our social media and website. But yeah, it's tricky because our gin is so unique that you have to try the different flavors and cocktails and see what works, what doesn't. And because, like you said earlier, it's so earthy, you kind of have to be careful on the citrus side, but orange works really well, but like just lime or lemon doesn't work as well. So it's kind of interesting to experiment with a few different flavors, but that one is definitely a winner, I think.
Yeah,
this is really nice.
We almost went the classical route on the flavor profile, except I had a close friend that I was working at the distillery with, and he said, well, why don't you work with the flavor profile of the actual distillate? So it had like a savory flavor, a bit of a whiskey flavor. So why don't we try and match the flavors to that? And that's how we came up with this particular recipe. That's why.
Totally, man. Yeah. And it turns into a talking point too, right? The flavor of the gin matches the backstory of the gin. Yeah. It's not, this just tastes like whatever, Seegers, and they happen to throw some bread in it along the way. Do you know what I mean? Like the story doesn't match in that scenario, whereas this does. It's really cool. I dig it.
Also,
very much so.
Put 13 ingredients in there to make it a baker's dozen.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, I saw that. Yeah, that's smart. You mentioned your social before as well. Where do people find? Where do you want to send people to find what you're doing?
So on Instagram, we're just at Hang 10 Distillery, and 10 is 10. We're on Facebook page as well, but yeah, mostly Instagram. And otherwise, on the website, people can sign up to our newsletter. We still have to set that up a bit more, but yeah, mostly Instagram. Otherwise, it's kind of the way to go these days.
Yeah, cool. And it's just hang10.com, isn't it?
Hang10
Distillery?
hang10distillery.com.au or Instagram hang10distillery and 10 for hang10.
Cool, man. Yeah, and where is it actually available? Like, can people actually go out and get this?
They can order online at the moment.
Online, yeah.
There is a couple of bars in the city that have it.
In Sydney's Northern Beaches and the city.
And we're going to be going around the Northern Beaches soon to talk to bars, but we're just developing the business and the logistics side.
Yeah. But otherwise, mostly online. People can just order on our website, and we ship it mostly to Australia and probably now to New Zealand.
No.
Yeah. It never ceases to amaze me the amount of different hats that a distillery owner has to wear, right? You've just been talking about design and then obviously the distilling, but now sales, marketing, logistics. It's just a never ending. I considered it. I considered it when COVID hit and I lost the job. The first thing my wife said to me was, right, so we're opening a distillery, okay? No. Maybe. And honestly, man, I sat down and thought about all the stuff that you would have to do, and it was just, I couldn't make it work in my head, man. So I very much, I appreciate the amount of work that you guys are putting into this. What have you found the hardest so far out of all of it? Like, what's been the the hardest thing?
Well, I think that the hardest thing, which is still a problem for us, is actually finding a location to actually build a distillery and then getting the permission to do it.
Right.
So to do it here, you need to get permission from the local council before you even apply for the liquor license through the government. So there's a lot going on. And you also, depends on the area, you also need to do a survey of anyone within like 500 meters or something like that. If they've got any issues with that, you need to like community consultation. So there's a lot of stuff. I think that's probably the hardest part for me.
Yeah, the administration part is hard. I think also, like for me, it's because I still have my job that I do every day. It's sometimes hard to find the time. I wish I could spend every day on the distillery, but at the moment I can't, and we can't pay ourselves yet either. Yeah. So it's like we're investing a lot of our time, and hopefully in the future we get some kind of return. So yeah, time management, and as you said, like wearing so many different hats is really hard. Like we're lucky because our skills are very complementary. Yeah, so you do a lot of the technical sales part, and I do a lot of like the marketing design part. So that's really lucky in that sense, because I think if we were just one person, it would be like extremely hard.
Yeah, that is very, very cool. It's cool. I mean, it's hard, right? It's very cool to be able to do something together, but it's also it's I don't know, man. It's also very stressful. So the goal for you guys is it almost like market validation at the moment, and then the end goal is to bring it as much of you can of the process in-house to be able to mash, ferment, distill, macerate, blend, everything in-house.
Yeah, so we're just setting it up now. We were trying to see if it would work, and we've got a product that we can work with, and got a couple other ones in the pipeline. We just wanted to set that up, see if it's good, and then before you obviously invest too much money into the project, you want to work it out.
Yeah.
We don't want to be a giant distillery. We don't want to sell to everyone 1 million bottles or whatever. We just want to make a decent product from something we believe in, which is looking after the environment. So.
Yeah, cool. And is the goal for you guys to be able to walk away from the day jobs, in whatever 5 years or whatever your timeline is, or is this always, or is the plan to have this as a side hustle?
Yeah. No, this is the main hustle, but we also don't want it to completely take over our lives. I mean, it will to an extent, but we were trying to get I wanted to get out of the office. 9 to 5 really wasn't doing it for me, so this is something that's a bit more dynamic, that's more enjoyable, something I believe in.
Yeah, for me, I think I still enjoy doing my design work, but definitely, like if we see the distillery really growing to a point where I can spend full-time work on it, I'd love to do that, and then have free time to just illustrate whatever I want and not have to chase jobs. But we'll see. Hopefully, yes, maybe 2 or 3 years, crossing fingers.
Hopefully.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I guess the cool thing is too, when you gypsy distilling, I like that. I've never heard that before. I'm going to steal that. I guess the cool thing is too, like you do actually have a product, right? So you can kind of test your fulfillment channels and everything as well. You can start building a list of clients without having the bigger overheads. And then when you do start having products like the whiskey come through, you've already got, the 10 bars and restaurants or whatever locally, and maybe a couple of bottle shops or whatever. I don't know what your business model is there, but it means you can start exploring those options and making some inroads before the product's actually there. So that's pretty cool, man. I respect that. And to be honest, that was the conclusion we came to as well. If we were going to do it, it'd be the only way to do it. That, or be millionaires and just be able to buy everything and pay people to run it, right? I'm not a millionaire. I don't know about you guys. I get the feeling maybe you're not.
Not yet.
Not yet. Yeah, totally. I have to ask, is there anyone else doing anything like this? that you know of?
So as far as I know, we're the only ones in Australia making a commercial product. I know there was one guy messaged me. He's doing it in his backyard, some sort of thing. There is a guy over in I think Austria who makes a vodka out of bread.
Yeah.
I've spoken to him a little bit, but I don't know his process. So there's a few people around that do it. Also, some of the inspiration that we got actually came from a beer that they make in the UK called Toast, and that's made from leftover bread as well. So if they can make a beer, why not make
a gin? Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
I mean, I had a look around just to see, and I couldn't find anything. Not a commercial product anyway. No. I'd heard of people, like you said, just doing it kind of for shits and giggles, I guess.
Yeah.
And I must admit, the idea had occurred to me a bunch of times when you're constantly looking for video subjects to make. Anything that is starch or sugar, kind of, you walk through the supermarket and go, ooh. The idea had kind of jumped to my mind, but I hadn't put it into action at all. Do you find the one thing that kind of I wondered about was like stuck sparges or just everything turning to goop. Do you find that happens?
No, because we're using a smaller percentage. But I think if you start pushing over 50% or more, I think you'll see more issues like that. But the enzymes from the grain really basically dissolve the bread. The only thing that's left is the crust and the the gluten afterwards is really not
right.
It's actually pretty good.
Yeah, wow, that's crazy. I actually do wonder too if the fact that you guys are actually using bread. Do you know what I mean? Like the product you're using is actually bread. It's not whatever that Wonder Bread stuff is. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, okay, yeah. So we get it from the guy is certified organic. So
and we only use sourdough.
And we only use sourdough from it. So the sourdough tends to last longer because it's got a different pH so before it goes moldy as well. So that was another reason why we use sourdough.
Yeah, and I think the quality of the bread really makes a difference if you use high quality sourdough compared to really standard white bread.
We might try the white bread down the path.
Yeah.
But at the moment we wanted to use the high quality bread.
Yeah. Have you? I mean, that's an interesting thing too. Have you experimented with different kinds of bread, or was it just literally a crime of opportunity? You had this cool baker in town, and
it was the opportunity. We have in the first batch we did run. There was a few darker loaves, and I think there's some of the flavour of that came through quite well. So I'm going to explore that in future whiskies.
Yeah.
For the darker bread.
Oh yeah, that could be real fun.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then
that real like the real thick crust, because I hadn't thought of that too, because it is basically grain, but it's also been baked and the crust is having a whole lot of Maillard reactions and it's darkening and browning.
Yep.
So you're basically adding specialty malt to your whiskey too, aren't you?
Yeah, it's been toasted. One of the breads we had they had a batch that was burnt.
Yes.
We didn't actually get to use that one. We didn't line everything up in time, but it smelled amazing. And I reckon that's got some potential. So if they get another burnt batch, we're definitely going to run it. So.
Yeah, man. It's like coffee malt or special B or something.
Yeah.
How did the brewers react to this? I've still got these gin and tonic burps going on here, sorry. But like when you first approached them, it's like, yo, I've got a proposition for you. What do they have to say?
Basically, the first impression is like, oh god, here goes another one of these people doing something funny, and then they go, oh, what, bread? They were so interested, and he's over my shoulder looking at everything, going, oh wow, and he just really wanted to see what it would do. So our brewer in Brookvale, not far away, he absolutely loves the idea and he's supporting us all the way, really helping us, work out different parameters and whatnot. So they love it.
That has to be a huge thing, right? Because for me, the gypsy distilling, I so love it. But like for me, the scariest part of all of that is that you're farming out the give a shit factor to someone who might just be getting paid hourly or whatever, like you're handing all of that over to someone else and saying, please actually care. Do you know what I mean? About my product that you're making for me, because like you're not necessarily directly involved all the time. And I have to imagine that, because if you just went to them and said, right, I want you to slap some distiller's malt into your mash tun, mash it for me, throw it out and put it into a tote, we'll ferment it, that's one thing. But you roll up and say, hey, I've got this idea. It's kind of crazy, but that bakery down the street. Do you think the fact that you actually had a unique idea kind of opened doors a little bit more for you than would have been the case elsewise?
Yeah, for sure.
Definitely.
He was really interested in it, in the process and what it would do. We all got hands-on in the whole process. So we were actually milling the grain and putting the bread in.
Oh, awesome.
He showed us around and everything. So it's been a really good experience.
Yeah, we try to be as involved as we can because unfortunately we don't have the equipment to do it ourselves yet. So whenever we can put our hands on it, it's good. Yeah.
That's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's exciting.
Yeah.
Does that excitement follow through to the sales side of things as well? Like how is, like when you talk to a local bar or restaurant or bottle store or whatever it happens to be, what's the reaction to it? And I have to imagine that Sydney is kind of a cool place to do this, right? I have to imagine there's the right kind of demographic to be into this sort of thing. Am I way off base there? Or
there's a lot of opportunity. There's a lot of places you can talk to and sell to. So the reception's been really good. Everyone's really interested in it, and then they taste the flavour and they're like, "Oh, this is like not like a normal gin." Yeah. They're just like, "This is amazing." And plus, we've got a story to back it up, which is really cool.
Yeah. I think the story side is really important because it's cool that there's so many gins in Australia. There's so many distillers and distilleries, and it's like amazing that it's such a big industry here. But it's also that you still have a lot of competition, and you could just be another gin. And we didn't want to be just another gin, so I think having that quite special story really helps us. Sell the product, and then people can taste it, and if they like it, usually they do. It makes a difference. But
yeah, totally. Have you? I have to imagine it would be interesting to get this into the hands of a really, really kick-ass mixologist, like someone who really knows what's up with throwing crazy ass flavors together. Have you been down there? I mean, this has to be on your radar, right? Like, have you had that opportunity yet?
We've spoken to a few, and we've come up with a few things, but we haven't hit someone that's just wanted to grab it and make something crazy with it yet.
Yeah, but we have a couple of people that are looking into it at the moment. But if there's like any crazy mixologist person out there that wants to do that, we'd love to hear from them.
Get in touch.
Or if you know anyone.
I don't. I mean, same thing. If there are people out here that know someone, I would be very interested to talk to a mixologist because it's such it's so tangentially related to everything distilling, right?
Yeah.
And yet I'm so far out of that world. I don't know anything about it. I don't know what I don't know, right? So I kind of feel like being able to talk to someone and pick their brain on it and get some ideas from it would be really, really interesting. Because at the end of the day, how do you put it? It's the ticket to market for so many products, right? Like unless you're literally a single malt and a pretty decent single malt, chances are you're going to sell a lot of your product through cocktails somewhere. And it feels like an afterthought to a lot of brands and distilleries. which is weird to me. I don't know. But yeah, obviously you guys are working on that.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, this has been an absolute blast. Before we go, if there's some crazy people that happen to have some basic equipment in their shed / kitchen / garage, and they were wanting to try to perform some magic like you have here, do you have any, just general advice for how to mess with bread?
Trial and error, seriously.
Yeah.
Just have a go. I would probably start with about quarter percent of the bread to grain mix and work your way up. Depends how far you go.
Yeah.
Right. And just literally treat it like an all grain whiskey.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, it's really about
crazy.
Experimenting.
Just have fun with it. But yeah, it's a form of starch. So it need enzymes to break it down, and it's all fermentable and good. So just watch your pH.
And are you do you have to physically break it up or anything, or are you just I imagine you definitely have to because you're working with full baker's loaves, right?
We've got big loaves, so we just break it up.
Yeah, you need to break it up a little bit.
Yeah. And it's almost like you just need to kind of break the let the liquid into the middle kind of thing, and then it just does the job itself.
Yep. Basically, because it doesn't really just the crust. The crust is kind of sits there floating on the end. So if you break it all up, just let the liquid get in, and the enzymes do their magic.
That's very, very cool. Very cool. For those of you at home listening, if you end up trying something like this, I expect to see photos tagged or descriptions or something tried. I'm going to have to try it at some point in time. If I do, I'll hit you guys up as a phone a friend in a video too. If you guys are cool with that, we can
for
we
sure.
can make plans later on.
Sounds good.
All right, guys. So one last time before we go anywhere, give us your social media handles and your website address.
Yeah. So on Instagram, Hang10 Distillery, so 10 with 1 0, and on website hang10distillery.com.au.
Awesome. Oh, thank you so much for doing this, guys. I really appreciate it. And I got to say, guys, if you get hold of this bottle, definitely try some with dry ginger ale and orange. That's pretty banging. All right, team. Thanks heaps.
Good to talk to you.
Thank you so much.